Now, before we continue, I want to make a point here. The trust that you'll receive from this course is not going to be a boilerplate trust, okay? And what a boilerplate trust is basically a trust that you can get off of the internet or any type of template that is already pre-formulated to assume to address whatever you need. This is not that. The trust that you'll get from this course is strictly for you to use as a reference source to formulate your own trust with. It'll give you the basic outlines and the principles that you need in order to address your specific needs. All right, and as the trust course goes or as it progresses, that will be made more clear to you. All right, so how do you want to manage and run the business and commercial aspect of your life is unique to your exclusive circumstances. Although this course offers public and private trust reference templates, they are presented as guidelines to formulate and expand your own trust document. The trust offered herein should not be used verbatim to address your exclusive goals for trust estate management. As you continue your studies, your trust document should grow as your knowledge of trust grows. All right. And again, you'll understand more of what that's saying as the course proceeds. This is what trust is, among many other things. A vehicle by which you can navigate the waters of business and commerce to the benefit of you and your family and heirs. All right, the super rich do not operate without trust, period. And this is how they keep the wealth within their families. I would advise you to read the Wikipedia article, United States Antitrust Law, and we'll allude to that link shortly into this document, where the power of trust was used to such a measure that the federal government had to pass legislation to stop the growth of wealth. These companies, these corporations, although they were corporations, they were operating under trust, and the government had to create antitrust laws in order to stop them from literally taking over total sectors of commerce, almost national sectors of commerce. I advise you to watch a movie called The Men Who Made America. It talks about John Rockefeller, uh, the guy who formulated Kaiser Steel, the railroad magnate Vanderbilt, J.P. Morgan, and you'll see the type of incredible power that these men had operating through trust. And that will further solidify your understanding of the importance and the power of trust. All right. So you'll see in the further reading that the government feared the financial power because the businesses that used trust law would take over entire sectors of commerce. Senator John Sherman, the excuse me, the main principle in creating the antitrust law called the Sherman Anti-Trust Act of 1890 compared these cartels to being kings, like the king in Great Britain, who basically ruled Great Britain and the 13 colonies in the early 16 and 1700s. All right. You will also see that though there were more than 3 acts of federal laws, such as the Clayton Antitrust Act of 1914 and the Anti-Merger Act of 1950, 40 powerful conglomerates who were sued, the government sued these people, resulting in powerful companies like J.P. Morgan and Standard Oil being partially dismantled. So in the early 1900s, the U.S. government sued J.P. Morgan, sued Standard Oil, and Standard Oil is basically what is Chevron Oil. They're still around today, and they still control the entire sector of the fuel industry. Okay, so we're getting back to our reading. Even though they were dismantled as a direct result of these antitrust laws, still the power of trust law kept these companies alive and powerful, even in the wake of federal assault. J.P. Morgan is now the generally wealthy J.P. Morgan Chase, better known as Chase Bank. Standard Oil is now ExxonMobil and Chevron. They survived the federal attack and still grew, meaning that the federal government went after these men and dismantled some of their companies or some parts of their companies, but still could not stop the rapid growth and the rampant growth of power and influence and monopoly that these corporations gained. All right. So speaking of that, let's go to this link up here, Wikipedia, right? And I'm not going to read the whole thing, of course, but I strongly advise you to read this antitrust law. It's not a long read at all. All right, but it will give you. Matter of fact, you can read to. Well, you can read to whatever you want, but it's mostly talking about the cases that ensued as a result of companies gaining so much power from wielding trust law. All right, but we'll go down here to, let's read the first paragraph first. United States antitrust law is a collection of federal and state government laws that regulate the conduct and organization of business corporations, generally to promote fair competition for the benefit of consumers. Now it says generally to promote fair competition, but that's not all they do. The United States and a lot of these corporations basically had wars, and the wars were not physical, but they were basically administrative and judicial. All right. The concept is called competition law in other English-speaking countries. The main statutes are the Sherman Act of 1890 and the Clayton Act of 1914 and the Federal Trade Commission Act of 1914. These acts first restrict the formation of cartels and prohibit other collusive practices regarded as being in restraint of trade. So they're trying to say that these corporations, in combining, in forming trust and combining their powers or getting together to make contracts, and that's the main thing, to make contracts with one another in order to control sectors of commerce that would expand their businesses. These acts were supposedly formed in order to stop them from gaining too much power through these contracts. All right, remember, trust is a contract. And no matter that they're mentioning corporations, remember, this is an antitrust law. So you got to keep that in mind. They'll try to throw you with other words, but this is all about trust. And this is going to boil down to why trust is so powerful. All right. So, second, they restrict the mergers and acquisitions of organizations that could substantially lessen competition. Third, they prohibit the creation of a monopoly and the abuse of monopoly power. Now, there's a whole bunch of mergers and acquisitions going on right now. I think Amazon just bought, I don't know if Amazon just bought YouTube, or I don't know who bought who, but these mergers are going on all the time and they're rampant. So, these supposed antitrust laws, that's another story what they're really about. In the beginning, as we're going over right now, yes, they were about the federal government trying to stop too much power from being gained by these corporations or by these trusts, basically, but they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. So the Federal Trade Commission, the U.S. Department of Justice, state governments, and private parties who are sufficiently affected may all bring actions in the courts to enforce the antitrust laws. Hence, that's why the U.S. government sued a lot of these companies. They tried to take the battle to courts. The scope of antitrust laws and the degree to which they would interfere in an enterprise's freedom to conduct the business or to protect smaller businesses, communities, and consumers are strongly debated. One view, mostly closely associated, the Chicago School of Economics, suggests that antitrust laws should focus solely on the benefits of consumers and overall efficacy or efficiency, while a broad range of legal and economic history sees the role of antitrust laws as also controlling economic power in the public interest. And that's what it's really about, controlling economic power. But it could not be done. Let me make that very clear. And if you look around at the power that corporations wield, it's very obvious. So we're going to go down here real quick. We're not going to do any more reading other than this small paragraph right here. Okay. Right here, where Senator John Sherman put it. Okay, and John Sherman is the one uh, who instituted the Sherman Anti-Trust Act. It's named after him. As Senator John Sherman put it, if we will not endure a king as a political power, we should not endure a king over the production, transportation, and sale of any of the necessities of life. So you got to understand, when they say that, that is a huge thing. Because coming back here, when he said that, He compared these cartels to being kings like the kings in Great Britain, who basically ruled Great Britain and the 13 colonies in the early 16 and 1700s. So they're talking about basically being ruled over completely, just as the king from Great Britain ruled the 13 colonies over here in America. That's a lot of power. So you also see that though there were more than 3 acts of federal laws, such as the Clayton Anti-Trust Act of 1914, the Anti-Merger Act of 1950, despite these, and also 40 powerful conglomerates being sued, and these are companies like J.P. Morgan again, Standard Oil, um, who is now ExxonMobil and Chevron, J.P. Morgan Chase, which is now Chase Bank, they still grew because trust law is indomitable. For this reason alone, it's time that the power be used to preserve family, just as it has preserved the first hallmarks of wealth in this country. Trust preserved the wealth that initially grew this country, and that same wealth still circulates and maintains that same control today. And it controls much of our lives as much as we would like to think it does, or we would like to think it doesn't. Trust me, it does. It is that generational wealth that has the oppression as it is. All right. Therefore, we do not leave such a potential power to a dead static template that offers no fluidity. So now we're talking about the boilerplate trust. We're not going to use the trust power to limit it to a template that is supposed to be general to everyone. That has no power. So this is the reason why I'm explaining to you that this trust that you'll receive is not to be used as your trust. Although many of the paragraphs and many of the stipulations can be used, you're going to have to structure and formulate it into your own trust to speak for your own ways that you want to increase your personal wealth. And again, as we go through the course, that will be made apparent to you, so don't worry about it. All right. So you can receive a trust following this course, and again, it's only meant to give you a clearer reference and bearing with both examples, revocable and irrevocable, private and public. It's going to give you those samples, it's going to give you those options, they're going to give you the principles of both. And that, along with the consultation that you'll get once you complete this course, will definitely meet all of your trust needs.